Кто посещал вершины диких гор в тот свежий час, когда садится день, на западе светило видит взор, и на востоке в близкой ночи тень. Внизу туман, уступы и кусты, кругом все горы чудной высоты. Hello, my name is Thomas Beavitt, and I've been coming to Russia for the last 13 years. I'm here today to talk about a project that I've been working on with some very talented young Yekaterinburg musicians and other people, technicians, but this project started actually about 4 years ago, when a filmmaker from Moscow called Maxim Priventsev contacted me out of the blue on a recommendation because he wanted to make a film about Lermontov, Mikhail Lermontov, the Russian poet, and his Scottish connections. And I happened to be in Scotland at that time for a few months. So I was asked to make this translation of this long poem by Lermontov, 11th of June, 1831, which is 256 lines long of iambic pentameter. And it took me a week to make a translation into English, and the film crew arrived, and I recited the part of the translation I had finished. And then, but that wasn't the end, because I started memorizing my own translation, and of course to make some very small edits in some lines that I wasn't entirely happy with. And through the process of memorization, I started to hear some kind of rhythms and some kind of musical structure. And so it was in my mind, and at that time I was listening to quite a lot of rap music. And I started to see that metrical poetry is essentially rappable, just as lyrics are generally singable. But it would be absurd to try to sing such a long poem. But I had this idea. I wanted to make some music. So then I met Andrei Bakovikov here in Yekaterinburg. He invited me to lead an English group at his institute, the conservatory in Yekaterinburg, and I was talking to him about my projects, and he said, "Oh, I think I have just the guy for you." And it was his partner, actually, Nikita Nikitin, who kind of composes music to order, mainly using samples and computer style of composition. So I said, well, I'm working on this long text of Lermontov. I'd really like to set it to some music. So we started this process. I recited the whole poem to a click track, putting the beats where I felt them, and it was quite clear. And then Nikita composed this wonderful soundtrack, which I'll be performing at the Kamerny Theater next Wednesday, the 26th of January. So, in fact, we finished that project 2 or 3 years ago, and we presented it at the Linsky Library to a small audience of Yekaterinburg culture vultures, and it seemed to go down well. There was also a sand animation film made by another Moscow artist called Ekaterina Schäfer. So we presented her film and my recitation in English of this poem. So after that, we started working on what was to become Heraclitus Flow, which is the album that we'll be launching next week. And this is my own lyrics in English, set to Nikita's rhythmic compositions. And basically it's rap, so I'm going to be rapping. Rap is a different kind of performance than singing. I think it's quite engaging. I think it's quite lively. I think that young people are tuned to this style of presentation. It's kind of more interesting for a younger audience than singing. And we're going to be making a big show. There's going to be dancers, there's going to be actors, there's going to be lights. Everything is going to be designed. It's going to be a surprise for me because, well, I haven't seen it all yet, but I'm working with this guy called Yevgeny Zayev. So he's in the role of a theatre director, and so he's putting the show together and bringing his people in. And I must say, it's great, really great to work with this guy. He's really imaginative, and he's got a very clear vision. So it's going to be an extravaganza. It's going to consist of my presentation of this poem of Lermontov set to Nikita Nikitin's music, all 256 lines of it in the original Russian, which I will be reciting from memory and moving around the stage and interacting with dancers and so on, under Yevgeny Zayev's direction. So that will be the first part of this show. And then the second part will consist of the tracks from Heraclitus Flow, which are my own lyrics in English. And these tracks are, well, they're quite, I think, contemporary, quite controversial, commenting on some contemporaneous themes. For example, there's one called Lovely Jubilee 2020, which is talking about the beginning of the famous pandemic, and also the kind of economic reset agenda, which I think can be seen as kind of trying to resolve some of the contradictions in global capitalism before something really bad happens. And so this song kind of sets this contemporary event against a biblical backdrop of the Jubilee every 50 years in biblical times, Old Testament times. They would kind of stop everything and all property would return to God, slaves would be set free, and people would just kind of praise God, and I expect they would also party a little. And then they would get back to business after a year of this, and all the slaves would come back into their chains, and everything would start again. So it's a kind of reset mechanism. So Lovely Jubilee is a kind of, maybe I'll recite a few lines from this. So I'm taking the role of a prophet here. You shall make this year holy, proclaim pandemic liberty. All must bow down and worship me. Who can disagree? Each vagabond and refugee returning to his family to occupy his property and ponder jubilee. And so this kind of tells the story of what happened in recent memory. And this, you might have heard the kind of repetition of the E sound, E, 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 E. And to me, this creates a kind of space. It's kind of an open space, like the empty streets during the dark days of the pandemic. And I say dark, but in fact, there was a lot of light as well, lots of space. People had time. So I'm not saying it's all bad, but it's a contemporary theme that we'll be covering in this. It was actually Lermontov who brought me into this way of thinking about creating art, about music, and about text. So he kind of provided the metaphysic for this project.